A single, almost invisible trace left behind at a crime scene can completely unravel an entire case. But how, exactly, does that tiny piece of evidence make the journey from, say, a crime scene to the inside of a courtroom? Well, that's what we're going to dive into. Let's follow the clues. Look, we've all seen the crime shows, right? The flashy labs, the instant results. It all looks so simple. But the real process is so much more careful, more methodical, and honestly, way more fascinating. And it's a journey that doesn't start with a microscope. It starts with a person. So, how do you even make a forensic detective? Well, it all kicks off with an incredibly intense and rigorous training program. It's designed to shape an expert who can stand up to the ultimate test, the witness stand. I was looking through the Virginia Department of Forensic Science training manual, and it makes the goal crystal clear. It's not just about being a great scientist in a lab. The real goal is to create an expert witness, someone whose work, methods, and conclusions can hold up under the intense pressure and scrutiny of a real courtroom. So before a trainee can even think about touching real evidence, they have to get through these final hurdles. First up, there's a formal oral exam to prove they know their stuff, technically. Then, and this is so important, they have to go through at least 2 mock trials, where they have to defend their findings against actual, skilled lawyers. It's only after they pass these high-pressure tests that they are finally authorized to handle real cases. This is where science really learns to speak the language of the law. Okay, so once they're qualified, the real analysis can begin, and it always follows this strict 2-step logic. The very first step is all about finding a potential lead, a first clue that something might be there. These are what we call presumptive tests. The best way to think about it is like this. A presumptive test is kind of like a smoke detector. It's super sensitive, and it's designed to go off at the mere possibility of a fire, but, it can also be set off by some burnt toast. A confirmatory test, on the other hand, is the firefighter who shows up, checks everything out, and says, yep, this is definitely a fire, and here's exactly where it started. One test suggests, the other one proves. A classic example you've probably seen on TV is luminol. An investigator sprays it in a dark room, and if blood is around, the heme in it causes this chemical reaction that gives off this eerie blue glow. It's amazing for finding hidden stains, but, and this is the key thing to remember, other stuff, like bleach or rust, can make it glow too. So it's a powerful clue, but it is not a final conclusion. And that's exactly why saying something might be blood just isn't going to cut it in court. To get a conviction, you need certainty. You absolutely need that final proof. And that can only come from a confirmatory test. This right here is a perfect example. When an examiner is looking for semen, the gold standard is simple and absolute. Can you identify spermatozoa under a microscope? If you see them, it's confirmed. There's no ambiguity, no guesswork. It's a direct, positive ID. But what happens when the evidence isn't quite so clear-cut? Let's get into a case study to see how this all works when things get complicated, focusing on a piece of evidence that has its own unique challenges: a urine stain. Okay, so blood and semen have these really well-established, solid confirmatory tests. But what about all the other biological fluids out there? What happens when the science gets just a little bit murkier? So here's the crucial point. With a dried urine stain, forensic scientists kind of hit a wall. The training manual itself points out that while there are plenty of ways to suggest a stain is urine, there isn't one single universally accepted test that can confirm it. And that creates a real scientific puzzle for the examiner. So what are the options on the table? Well, this chart breaks down 3 common presumptive tests. You've got the Jaffe test, which looks for creatinine. That's a waste product from our muscles. It's fast and cheap. Then there are the Urease and DMAC tests, which go after urea, the main chemical in urine. And then there are newer tests like RSID urine, which are designed to find a very specific protein called tam horsefall, which is only made in the kidneys. So, as you can see, examiners have to weigh these trade-offs between speed, cost, and of course, the risk of a false positive. And that leads to this really fascinating takeaway from an analysis of these methods. Even though a newer test like RSID urine is way more specific, the Jaffe test, which is over a century old, is often still the most practical and cost-effective choice for a lab. It's a perfect example of how real-world constraints, like budgets and caseloads, end up shaping the science that gets used. So, after all of this incredibly complex analysis, after weighing the pros and cons of all these different tests, what's the final result? Well, it all comes full circle, right back to the courtroom.
All that work in the lab really boils down to three critical things: an accurate report that details every single test in its result, sound conclusions that are based purely on that data, and finally, the expert testimony that's needed to explain it all to a judge and jury.
And this brings us right back to where we started. Remember those intense mock trials from the training phase? This is exactly why they're so important. The ultimate goal isn't just to find an answer in a test tube. It's to document that answer perfectly in a formal certificate of analysis, and then be able to skillfully and successfully defend every single decision and result in a court of law. It's a process that demands absolute precision at every single step, from that first potential clue to the final verdict. But as science keeps advancing, maybe the biggest question isn't what we can find, but how we can prove it. The next time an invisible trace is found at a crime scene, what new tests will exist to tell its story with the kind of certainty our justice system demands?